Okay, we're sitting here with Ron here at Bigger Pockets Convention. Ron is an attorney as well as a real estate investor himself. So let's start with here. So this is where I first met Ron, was we were starting to create our LLC in Texas. So when do you think is the right time for somebody to make that plunge and create an LLC and get out of just being a sole proprietor?
Yeah, Casey, thanks for the introduction. Ron Rohde, attorney in Dallas. I think that when to start the LLC is obviously it's a very personal question, but I tend to say that you should create at least one early on in your deals. And the reason for that is because when you're just starting off, people are a little bit nervous, and creating an LLC gives you, I don't say an air, but it does give you some formality. It creates an instant credibility link that when you submit an offer to a seller, you're not just, Casey, Gregersen, individual. You can say that we are presenting this offer, our team, our investors, but this is the LLC that we're going to go under contract. God forbid if something goes wrong, they can't come after you individually. You just have this LLC that you're using to contract the properties with. So I would say at least create one. You don't need to necessarily create one for every single property after that, but create that LLC, get the naming, get the branding, and that will really give you some confidence to start putting out offers.
Awesome. And I think it's a lot of misconceptions is there's a lot of work that goes into creating an LLC, but give us a quick highlight of how simple it is.
Absolutely. So, again, I'll give it to you straight. I'm not one of those lawyers that says you have to go to the lawyer every time. If you're a single member, as in one person is owning the LLC, it's not a partnership, I have no problem. You guys can do it yourself. We have links on our website for the Secretary of State. You go online, Texas, for example, a lot of states make it really easy, Florida. You just click through the buttons, you fill out the forms, you check the boxes, and you pay the filing fee. Then there's no necessary reason, there's no strict requirement to hire a lawyer for a single member, simple LLC. So I'm all for it. Save your money for the real stuff, but pay the filing fee. I don't think that there's actually a place for LegalZoom, so take that, LegalZoom, because they're not adding any value, right? They're just providing a checklist of what is literally the step-by-step checklist that the Secretary of State does. So I think that if you go through that checklist on the Secretary of State website and you have questions, then you need to hire a lawyer, because you can ask a real person those types of questions, and as a real estate attorney, I'm going to give you the best answers for your situation. But LegalZoom, there's just no value, right? You're not talking to a real estate attorney, and you're not starting that relationship with the legal counsel in your field. So if you're going to be wholesaling, if you're going to be investing, if you're going to be buy and hold, you want that relationship with an attorney. This is a great opportunity to start talking to us.
Love it. Let's segue into the partnership part. So I know you've got a lot of experience with that. If you're going to partner, what's the first step? So maybe from the LLC to what they should be thinking about.
So definitely it's a good plug for my YouTube video, JV partnerships. So the typical stages when you're buying real estate, I would say on the very easy and beginning side is just single member. This is yourself, you got your own cash, you're buying it in your name, you're buying it in your LLC. It's simple, it's a single member, but it's also limited, eventually you run out of equity. On the other extreme is like a syndication or securities raise, that's 506, that's kind of big boy funds, that's on the other extreme. But in the middle is a pretty big area, and that's the JV, that's a partnership where you have active members within an LLC, each splitting up duties of the property management, and then we may split 50-50, 60-40 of the equity, and it really allows a lot of flexibility to grow because you've essentially just doubled your equity pile. So in the beginning, if you were able to buy 2 properties, well, if we partner and we're in an LLC and we're both members and we have those agreements defined, we can now buy 4 properties. So it's really a great way to scale with people that you know and trust. But back to your original question, the first step, I would say, check out the video. I have a free link to a checklist of top 10 or 15 partner concerns that you should talk through with your partner. And again, put those on in writing and just talk about it. Say, what happens if X happens? What should we do? And that ranges from, disputes, that's losing money, but it's also good things like, do we want to sell? Hey, it's cash flowing. the market's hot, we should sell. The other guy says, no, I want to hold it. It is cash flowing. We should hold it. How do you resolve those types of disputes in a simple manner? And again, it doesn't have to rise to a legal battle, but if you put it in writing, it really ensures that you avoid conflict down the road.
I love that checklist from the YouTube video because I'm assuming that's a great way, because a lot of people when they're starting, they're concerned about the legal cost of everything. So that sounds like the checklist that the two partners could go through on their own time when they're not paying the attorney, try to hammer some of that out, and then come to you as the attorney, right?
Absolutely. So what we typically recommend, again, is it's 15 or 20 items that it's a starting conversation, but it's not the end-all be-all complete list. It's just different concepts that we see a lot in our practice that lead to, friendly disagreements, right? I don't want to call them disputes, but you start with that list, you think about it, and if you write down all of how you would want to resolve it, that gives us the basis. And I'll throw this out there. Let's call it $1,500. We'll get you an operating agreement. You can talk to the attorney. It's efficient if you fill out that list ahead of time as partners and you talk through all of the facets of the LLC and how the partnership should run. Then you can be efficient with me. So that's just kind of a price point people want to know. Some people come to me and think it's going to cost $5,000.
$5,000 to get started. Wow.
It's not 500, but it's not 5,000. So.
Cool. Well, another great thing that Ron's good at is when it comes to like property management, leasing, putting together contracts like that. So yeah, I'd love to get your perspective on whether it's residential or commercial, like what's the thought process in, should I go get a boilerplate template lease or should I consult an attorney?
Yeah, great question. We do a ton of different lease contracts. I think the first misconception is that there's a standard lease. There is not a state government, there's no standard residential lease, right? In Texas, we have a couple different agent bodies, but they're private organizations that create a residential lease. So you have like the TAR lease, Texas Association of Realtors, you have the TAA, which is for Texas Apartment Association. But again, those are not standard in any sense. And so, yes, you can start with a boilerplate, but I really think that you need to understand your situation, your goals as an investor, your unique features of your property, as well as your property type, into making those changes. And just again, for an example, it's like parking situation. If you're in an HOA and you need to have strict parking rules, you're going to need an addendum to your residential lease that reflects the strict parking requirements of an HOA to ensure that your tenants don't get fined and you don't get fined. Pools, short-term rental agreements, medium-term rentals. We do room rental agreements, and all of these things are, I would say, variations on your basic residential lease. But if you take the original template, it's designed for a whole house, and that's it. Probably I'd say like a family living in a single-family detached house with no HOA, and that's the starting point. But you need to talk to the attorney about what are the things that are different from my goals. Maybe I want to show this property year-round to sellers, right? To buyers, and maybe I want to sell it. So you need to put that clause in there. Maybe there's a restriction on outdoor activities, and so the rules and regulations, the guests, all of these things matter when you're drafting your lease. Now you can try to write that in yourself, but I think that everybody, when you start doing that, you run the risk that it's ambiguous and it can't be enforced in court.
That's the worst part. Yeah, you go through it all right there, and then when it comes down to it, yeah, then you ultimately lose, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the most frustrating, is that you have some situation where you've tried to address it and you failed to adequately bind the tenant or give them notice, right? Just not even binding, but just adequately inform that, hey, you can't park an RV on the side of the house. That's a violation of HOA. And then say that in the lease, well, it says no cars on the side. I didn't know it didn't mean RV or trailer. Yeah. And I think it's a very reasonable interpretation from the tenant. He says the lease says no cars. I didn't park a car. I parked an RV trailer that's lower. And you as a landlord are going to be in an unfortunate position of a $250 fine from your HOA and saying, what do I do? Can I pass this to the tenant? And the tenant's going to fight it. They're like, you didn't tell me I couldn't. It's not a violation. And if you come to me as your lawyer, I'm going to say you're in a gray area. I don't think it's necessarily enforceable for you to pass that cost if you did not give them sufficient notice. So then it's stuck to you as a landlord, and let's say you just lost a month's worth of profit. due to being, you know, little penny wise and pound foolish. So
Love it, love it. Hey, so if you didn't capture all that, where can people find you, Ron?
Best way is on YouTube, Ronald Rohde Law, or the website ronaldrohdelaw.com.
Awesome.